Welcome, everybody. My name is Karen Swobtigner. I am the head of Jedi Praxeum. I am also, of the last couple of years, thanks to 2020, actually before then, but 2020 is the one that really got me going on this. I am kind of a hiker these days. What really started is that a couple of years before 2020, I don't remember what year, my friend lost 40 pounds, won a bet, and I took him to Disney World. Well, on top of that, I had to train for Disney World, and I spent every single day walking. Well, by the end of it, I went to Disney World and I did way more than I even thought I was going to do. And I came back and I said, well, I survived Disney World. And if I can do, 9 to 12 miles every single day, I think I could keep this up and keep walking. So I started exploring my town, and it turns out when you live around mountains, there's like a bazillion trails. So yeah, I started doing trails, and then 2020 came and my work had something like 300 queues or calls in queue, and it was ridiculous amounts of stress. I got no break from work. I'd be at home. I was locked down and there was just no escape from the stress. And the only thing you were allowed to do is they said you could go outside and you could go on walks. And I said, well, that's it. I'm going outside. I'm going on walks. So that is how I started hiking. And I will admit, I knew very little about hiking. Now, my dad did do about 3/4 of the Appalachian Trail. He hit the Whites, which is up north, and he said it was more like rock climbing than hiking, and he just gave up. But he did a ton of hiking, and he took me on a few trails, and I remember reading the packing lists as he would pack. So I have some idea, but I have gotten much better at hiking, and I kind of want to share what is hiking from a Jedi perspective and why go do this. I mean, you're probably going, well, that's just Karen's thing. Well, I actually encourage all of you to do this. You don't have to go on crazy trails. You don't have to go on long trails. You don't have to go literally up to the top of the mountain, but get outside and get off of asphalt. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get this started. So what is hiking? My own personal definition is to get off a pavement. If you're on ground and you're walking, you're hiking. It doesn't have to be on a mountain. I happen to live next to a huge mountain range. Actually, it's like a series of mountain ranges. You can go look it up on a map. And it's really just exploring nature. You don't have to be on a trail, in my opinion. The dictionary definition, because I got kind of curious last night, is, well, you can read it there, the activity of going on long walks, especially in the country or in the woods. So again, it doesn't have to be on mountains. It can be next to a river. It can be on the prairie lands. Wherever you are, there are trails. And if you're going, well, Karen, I really don't think there's any trails, go onto an app called All Trails. It's free. And go type in your town and you will find there are trails around that you just didn't know existed. It's really amazing. Now you're saying, okay, well, what if I do go on pavement? What is that? Well, I would call that walking. And walking is great. I am not, dissing on walking. Walking is wonderful. And walking is a great way to get you in shape for hiking. In fact, I will be doing my walking starting March 1st, as long as it's not raining. I hate rain and I live in a desert, so rain is not really much of a problem, but it can snow, it can be sun, it can be windy, and I will be out and I'll start walking. Now we're going to go into how to train, because you can't just go on the hardest mountain starting off. I mean, that's pretty obvious. But I'm kind of learning there is a way to do this. And the first thing is that you need to do daily walks. And I like to try to get 2, maybe 3 on a good day where our work didn't suck and I don't want to curl up in a ball and give up on humanity. No, I just go on a walk and I go after work and I'll get myself to go before work. And yes, it is really cold in the morning in March, and that's where you put on all your layers. But I will say, you don't need coffee, you need a walk in the morning. It will so wake you up. I will also say that I have a walking kind of pattern where for like the first week, I will sit the ground and say, okay, I'm just going to walk until I'm tired. I won't even wait for my feet to get sore. I'll just say when I'm tired. And that's about 3 or 4 miles right this second. That's about all I can handle. And then the next weekend will be, all right, let's go 4.2 or 4.3. And the weekend after that is 4.6 or 4.7. Your phone is really good for tracking it, and I suggest getting something like a Fitbit or any generic thing. Those are more accurate in my opinion, but your phone will do fine for figuring out. If you really need to know the exact amount you're walking, I would suggest a Fitbit. And I will say that you need to learn to rest. I am particularly bad at resting. I want to walk forever and completely wear myself out and get myself in trouble. So it is important to know how to take breaks. It is hard to take breaks. It is hard to sit and just stay there and, enjoy the scenery. And there are some tricks to that, such as take photos, get your water, get some food. You need to stretch, and not just stretch before and after hike. You need to stretch throughout the week. That actually makes a big difference. If you do live around mountains, it will make a huge difference, because if you don't stretch and you try to go up a mountain, you'll quickly hurt. You're going to hurt no matter what you do on a mountain, but it will hurt more and you may or may not hurt yourself. So stretching is very good. And goals and rewards. So when I do these goals and I say, okay, today I have to walk 4.5 miles. Well, when I'm starting to get sore towards the end and I'm never going to make it back to the car, or my feet hurt so much, that is when I start thinking my reward. So I especially like to do rewards for mountains that are steep. And the reward is when you get to the top, the turnaround point, that is when I get to have my Coke. And if you see my photos, I often have a Coke. I don't have any photos in this slide, but I can definitely show you a Coke and a stream because I was too tired to find any other place to put it down. So have rewards, and it can be, you're going to get a burger after this. And trust me, that'll be the best burger you've ever tasted. It can be, you're going to get a Coke. You're going to be able to watch a movie. Give yourself something to work towards. So when you're stuck on the last 100 feet and the mountain is just so steep, and I'm not kidding, I've been on mountains like that. You can tell yourself, okay, if I can get there, I can get that Coke. I will also say you need to learn how to be your own cheerleader, but we'll go over that in a little bit. And last but not least, we need to go over the pre-hiking routine. This is actually really important, and it will make or break a hike. And I thought that's stupid. I'm just gonna grab some stuff, get out the door, get on the trail, I'll be fine, right? No, that ends up with me missing things. I don't do the things I need to do. I don't stretch, I don't bring water, things go wrong, and then the hike goes really wrong and I don't complete it. So diet, I have kind of a rule that if I'm going to go up high, I have to be on a very strict diet. The least amount of salt that I can get away with, because there's salt in everything, but the least amount. No sugar, no caffeine, no, snacks, nothing unhealthy the night before and nothing unhealthy the morning of. I actually even get stricter on the diet for the morning of. And also, it sounds a little crazy, but calorie up. Get as much calories as you can in the morning, because you do not want to start a hike starving. That has gone wrong really, really, really bad. So don't start a hike hungry. Sleep is really important. Everybody tells you that, but it makes a huge difference. If you don't get your sleep before a hike, things go wrong very quickly, and you end up not completing the hike, and you do the walk of shame back to the car. That's a horrible walk of shame. Stretching, and we've already covered that. Do your stretching before you set foot on the trail. So when I get out of the car, I'll grab the poles, I'll grab the hat, I'll grab the hiking or the backpack, and then I will find a place to stretch. It doesn't have to be fancy, just get the legs stretched, maybe a little bit of the torso. Packing, I will do some of the packing the night before, and then I'll do the rest of the packing the morning of, and that's mostly to grab food and grab water. Driving planning, you need to know where you're going. I have done so many times where I'm like, oh, I'll just get in the car, I'll figure out. No, you end up circling 3 times over trying to find that stupid turn. And don't be ashamed if you have to pull over and relook at those directions. Go, where is this trail? So it pays to the night before go, okay, where's the trail? How am I getting there? What does the parking look like? Is everybody saying the parking is going to be horrible? Do I need to get up even earlier? You need to know that. Cameling up, that's actually a hiker term, and it means to drink as much water as you can right before you go on the hike. So while I'm in the car getting my stuff ready, I go, oh no, I gotta camel up. I'll take a water bottle and just chug all of it. And then comes use the bathroom before your hike. You will probably need to learn how to use the bathroom in the woods. It's not complicated, but it does help to use the bathroom before the hike. It's not fun to start off the hike needing to go. And that is all very important to start a hike, because otherwise things go wrong, and it's not fun when things go wrong. Supplies. I don't want to tell you to go out in the woods without some supplies. However, I also want to counteract that with, you don't need as much as you think. You probably are thinking, oh, I need to spend hundreds of dollars on the news and grades things, the most lightweight stuff I can get, the high tech. No, you don't. You do need some things, and it really comes down to how long are you going, how rough is it going, and how far away are you going to be from society. So food, if you're going to go for a mile hike, you probably don't need food. If you're going to go for 2 or 3, grab an apple just in case. If you're going to go on for 5 or 6 miles, I grab an apple and one other thing, and that can be whatever it is that really fills you up. I would not necessarily bring just junk food, but junk food does have a point because it has salt, and if you live in a hot place and you're hiking in the heat, you actually need the salt. So if I'm going to go for like 8 miles, I will bring an apple, a peanut butter jelly sandwich, a bag of chips like Cheetos, like a little bag, and I might grab like those rich crackers, like the little ones with the cheese or the peanut butter in them. Those are really excellent. I have found hiking wafers that are like hiking waffles that are filled with like honey, and that's really good. And then of course I bring my treat, whatever that is. It doesn't have to be soda. In fact, I won't bring soda on so much altitude because it becomes really bad for you. So I'll bring maybe a little bit of candy. And the deal is you don't get that till you reach the top. And if you don't reach the top, well, you get to carry that all the way back. And then water. So I'll usually bring 1 smart bottle of water on purpose, and I may have that empty or I may have that full, it just depends. And then the rest of it, I'll bring 1 to 2 liters of water. It depends on the length. If it's just going to be a mile, I'll bring like, I've got like 700 ml water bottles. So I'll bring 1 of those, but I will never go on a hike without water, because that will go very wrong. Filters, because if you're going to go on longer hikes, you can't be reliant on the water, especially out west. So if I do find water and I'm out, I want a way that I can filter it. Don't drink directly from the stream. I don't care what anybody tells you, you do not want to get sick from the water. Clothing. You don't need fancy clothing. I usually wear a t-shirt and non-cotton pants or shorts. and I don't wear cotton, not because the saying cotton kills. That is true of the East. It is not true of the West. The West is very dry. It's not too likely it's going to rain, and I always check the weather. That's another thing that I forgot to put in, but always check the weather before you go on a hike. Know what you're getting yourself into. But usually out west it's very dry, so I don't want to wear cotton because I'll kill cotton while walking. I'll rub the cotton pants to death and I'll just destroy shorts. So I always wear something synthetic. First, oh, and a hat. Doesn't have to be a big fancy hat. I wear a baseball cap. I got a hot pink one. I do that on purpose, not just because I like the color pink, but it is easier to find me with hot pink. If I ever get lost and have to be rescued, I want to make that as easy as possible. So hot pink. And all my friends know that I wear a hot pink hat, so they can always tell someone if I need rescuing. First aid kit, I have Band-Aids, Neosporin, and a ACE bandage. I don't have a lot of first aid, but I don't really need it. That should cover most of it. I've never had to use the ACE bandage, never seriously twisted an ankle. And I've used the Band-Aid and Neosporin once last year because I went and cut my hand. Hiking poles are optional. It depends on the terrain and your comfort level. If you're older, I would definitely recommend, almost insist that you have hiking poles. And if you're younger, it's optional, but I love hiking poles. They make going up and down mountains so easy. They can power you up a mountain, or they can steady you down a mountain. And you're going to see a photo, a couple of photos where hiking poles made a big difference. Sunblock, don't get a sunburn from hiking. It's not fun. Power supply, I have a little power bank that I always carry. And I don't care if it's a mile or 10, I always have a power bank. I do not want to run out of phone battery. A light, you don't have to have a light. I probably should have put that down below, but I do carry one. One of those little headlamp things that you can get that are very lightweight, not too expensive. Those are useful. I've never had to use one, but if you ever go near dawn or dusk, you want to be able to see where you're going. Of course, have your phone and have it fully charged. Map. Now, some people will want to say, oh, you have to have a paper map. No. If you get the All Trails app, it is a free app, but there is a paid version of it where you can get a offline downloaded map that will work even if you have no phone signal. And that has saved me on so many trails, and it gives me a huge peace of mind. I would not do all the trails that I have done without this app. So it is totally worth it. It's $30. I highly recommend it. And it's $30 for the year. That's a good thing. Keys and wallet. You need your keys, obviously, to lock the car. Always lock your car. And you must bring your wallet because these days there are people that go to the parking lots and go smash into people's cars and steal whatever they can find. And they do it on hiking parking lots on purpose because they know people are not there. It's all over Utah. There's always a story or two of people saying, oh, my car got broken into. And well, I mean, don't leave things in your car. Don't leave your wallet. And no, you can't leave it in the trunk either. You have to have nothing valuable in your car. So always bring your wallet. Bags, for two reasons. A, I use bags in case it does rain. I can then protect the wallet, the keys, and the phone. But I also have the bags to carry out my trash. There is a saying about leave no trace, and people are very, very serious about that. It is not okay to leave any trash, including toilet paper. Yes, you have to bring back your very stinky toilet paper. Do not leave any trace. It is a big, big deal. even if it's just a little bit of, if it's a tissue, if it's a little bit of trash, you bring that trash with you. So if you don't want to put in your backpack, you bring bags. The treat we've already gone over, and then optional things, and this really depends on where you're going and a whole bunch of stuff, but like rain gear. Check the weather. If there's a maybe 30% chance and you're still willing to go out, bring rain gear. I have a poncho. I haven't brought it yet, but I did once get stuck in a rainstorm. This was before I had the poncho. In fact, this is what got me to buy the poncho. And it was a beyond downpour. Like, there's not a strong enough word to explain the soaking I got. And I brought a friend and we got stuck walking a mile back to the car. And it took me 3 days to get my boots dry. A lighter, I do carry one. I haven't needed it. If you get stuck in the woods, you want a way to get a fire going for heat. You also want a lighter if you're going to bring cookingware, like cooking, like a stove or whatnot. I don't bring that because I don't go on long enough hikes to need that. But if you're gonna go overnight, of course, bring that. In fact, you're gonna get a lot more stuff than I'm talking about. I'm more talking about day hikes. Bear spray. This is kind of controversial, depends on where you're going. I don't go deep into the woods, and I wouldn't go deep into the woods alone, but if I were, I would bring bear spray. I go on very well hiked trails that have a lot of people, so the more people, the more noise, the more the bears will leave you alone. They won't go near you. They'll go deep in the woods. Now that's for out west. It's a little bit of a different story back east. You need to do your own research on the bear situation, but largely just learn to, if you're going to go alone, learn to make noise. It's okay to talk to yourself, and it's perfectly fine to say, hey, bear, every couple of minutes. Just say, hey, bear, sing to yourself, talk to yourself, plan out your day, worry, plan out that thing that's coming up in a week. Just, it's okay. No one's going to call you crazy. And then comes the debate, alone or with a friend. And there's pros and cons to both. I have done alone. I have done it with friends. The picture on the left that has the word alone, that hike I did alone. And that hike, I didn't have any friends that could keep up with me on that hike. That was an incredibly hard hike. And I just did it alone, but I had tons of people on that trail. I was not actually alone. But I will say being alone is not as scary as everybody says. It really isn't. You just need to be prepared, and you need to know how to get yourself out of a bad situation. It is a good idea to be alone because it gives you time to think, and it gives you time to work out things. And it's I prefer to hike alone, but I won't be so stubborn. I won't go with a friend when I need one. The picture on the left, or the right rather, is with a friend. I actually had two with me. I had two because it was so high in altitude. It was 8,000 feet that I suffer altitude sickness really bad. And I can't trust myself to hike alone at that altitude. So I brought two friends and we had a blast. They helped me keep going, even though my head was kind of pounding and, I wasn't the most steady on my feet, but I was determined to get up to that waterfall. It was a really cool waterfall, and that photo lies. That waterfall is way more vertical than it looks, and it was much more taller. But going with a friend is good for safety. It's good for making the miles go by. You two can look out for things. You two can help each other up if you need, like, just someone to literally haul you up the mountain, hand by hand. They're good for that. And it's good safety. If something were to happen, they can go and find help. So it's up to you. I'm not saying you have to be with a friend or you have to go alone. It's up to you on what you want to do, but there's pros and cons to each. Fears and dangers. I'm not going to say that hiking is not without dangers. There are several dangers and several fears, and they're definitely not insurmountable. sorry, dry mouth. And with the fears, mostly people fear the bears, they fear the snakes, they fear the animals. They don't really fear the nature. And that's the problem. That is the actual danger in my head. Now that you can barely see it, but there is actually a snake right in here. Excuse me. It is a snake that is called a gopher snake. And at first glance, it looks awfully a lot like a rattlesnake. And the story behind this particular photo is that I had a couple of kids with me who do not go hiking regularly. And we were going to go see some pictographs. And I said, hey, before we go on the hike, let's talk about what we do if we see a snake. And the rule is that we are going to immediately step away from the snake. We're going to say the word snake, we're going to point at the snake, and we're going to wait for the adult to make a decision on what to do. I happen to be that adult. And the kid who spotted the snake did exactly that. I was so proud that they followed the instructions. And snakes, really, most of nature does not want to fight you. They do not want to attack you. They don't want to bite you. That is a risk. That is, for snakes, that's actually using up their venom that they may need for some other time. It takes them a while to remake that venom. So they don't want to bite you, but they will if they feel like they have no choice. With the bears, they don't want to fight you, but they will if you are near a cub, which is the most dangerous situation you can be in, or if they are particularly hungry, or you really got way too close to them and startled them. There are some things you can do, such as if you see a bear, do not run, do not turn your back, and don't immediately go for aggression. Slowly back away from the bear. Just keep it calm, keep it cool. Don't directly look in their eyes, but look in their direction, and just keep it cool. Now, if the bear is now standing up on his hind legs and making angry sounds, this is where you take your hiking poles, and this is where hiking poles are a safety thing. You cross them in an X and you start making sounds, and you make it clear to the bear, I'll fight you if you're really going to go this direction. I have never been in this situation, but this is the advice that everybody says. The chances of that are so low that I don't really fear the bears. On top of which, make your sound, read the reports on the trail to know if there are bears or a lot of snakes. I will avoid certain trails if that trail just has a lot of snakes that year. So, but that snake was not a problem. We waited, the snake went away. We quickly got away from the area of the snake and we were good to go. The real danger is this particular trail that you're seeing right now. On the right-hand side under dangers, that trail, again, my camera lies, was much steeper than that was. And that's already like really scary steep. I could not physically stand. I could not physically walk down that trail. What I had to do is I had to scoot down my bum for like a mile because it wasn't just that hill, it was the hill after that and the hill after that. And the next day I went and did Justin's trials, laying on my bed, unable to sit. But that trail was so dangerous because it was so steep and there was no way to get off it. I couldn't go up and I could only go down. And on top of that, I had food poisoning. It was literally the worst hike I have ever been on. And there are some dangers. To avoid that, I would have gone and looked up more of that trail. I did not do enough research, and I ignored the warning sign of I couldn't find a name for this trail. I saw on the map, but there was no name. There was no reviews. There was nothing to tell me what this hike was going to be. Go on known popular trails. All right, now where to go? Well, it's fairly, in my opinion, fairly self-explanatory, but really go on to things that are interesting. Look for bridges, look for streams, look for interesting valleys, rock formations, a cave. This happens to be a really, really cool cave. Go for what is in your limit. Be honest with yourself. You can only do 2 miles, only go 2 miles. Not too far away. I would not suggest driving 3 miles or 3 hours to go on a trail. Do something that's maybe half an hour, maybe an hour away. Go on trails that are popular, which we've already gone over why, and go on ones that have good reviews. If it has bad reviews, it's probably either very steep, really hard, dangerous, or really boring. So always just learn where you're going and why you want to go there. Now we're going to go into the why section, because now that you know how to go and do your hiking and what to bring and all this stuff, now you need to know, well, why do all this? Well, it's great physical conditioning. You'll get cardio, you'll build up muscles. I had these big bulky leg muscles, calves, and by the end of the season, my calves are so much leaner. It's great for balance improvement, where you have to balance on one foot and try to go on the next one. Yeah. Great for weight loss, lowers blood pressure. It does a bunch of more things, but I figured those were the most obvious cool things about hiking. Mentally, it's really good for your mental. You're focusing on where to walk, where the trail is, to a right or left. Planning is very good at keeping you focused on something. It's really just, I think planning is awesome. Paying attention. You have to not only pay attention to the trail, you're paying attention to the woods, you're paying attention to how you feel, you're paying attention to a lot of different things. So that's very good for your mental state. And sleep better. You will sleep so well after your hike. And if you keep up your daily walks, you'll sleep better. On days that I don't sleep well, I will purposely make myself and walk that day, even though I'm sleep deprived, because I'll know I'll sleep better than that night. Emotionally, walking is in many ways therapy. Excuse me. It is facing fears. There's nothing like looking down at a steep cliff that you somehow have to get down to really get you to face your fears. It calms anxiety. My work is very anxious, and I go on hikes and I forget about, the clients and the boss and the bank account and how am I affording rent and how is everything going to work, and I said this thing about so and so. No, all that will go away when you go really get into your hike, because it is you and nature, and that's all it is. If you try to keep focusing on, I said this thing about someone, you're going to end up falling on your face, feeling like an idiot, and then focusing back on the trail. Face depression. There is nothing like being out in nature to really make you forget that you're miserably depressed. It brings a sense of peace and calm. It's really just so wonderful to hike in a meadow with the sun on you and seeing green stuff all around you and just smell that really fresh air. It's just so wonderful to see nature be nature. Let's go on. Another why. Well, why do it? Because it is a walking meditation. Your thoughts are going to naturally narrow down. In fact, I tend to get onto very narrow looped mindset when I go on hikes, which is hilarious because I spend all day at work with my brain wanting to go on every topic but work. And I get to walking, I'm like, all right, brain, you can think any topic you want. Well, it picks like 3 topics, and that's all I think about over and over and over. Key in that is make sure you start the hike on a positive note, and you will stay positive throughout the hike, as long as you don't hit anything too physical. Present moment. Hikes are really good at getting you into the present moment. If you're not in the present moment, you need to take a break. You need to look at your scenery You need to just enjoy it. Look at the mountains, look at a flower, look at a leaf, look at a tree. Just enjoy what is around you. Enjoying the silence. You really do not realize how much noise is in our society until you're out in nature. And you may at first feel very uncomfortable with the silence, but the more you hike, the more you'll learn that you really love silence. And if you're going is way too silent, well, start looking for the birds. There's always birds around. There's always bugs buzzing around. There's noise. Listen to the creek. Find something. There's always noise around. The art of photos. You're probably noticing I take some interesting photos, right? Well, that is because I have learned the art of taking photos. And this is something I learned while I did all these hikes. You go through these hikes and you see, oh, that's beautiful, and that's pretty, and that's gorgeous. Do you really ever stop and see what exactly is beautiful about that? Have you ever seen a tree and said, oh, that's a pretty tree, and go about your day? Well, if you stopped and looked at that tree and said, what is it about that tree? Is it the flower? Is it a leaf? Is it the entire tree? If you get out your camera and start taking photos and start playing around with the angles and zooming in and zooming out, you'll soon learn how to take these really awesome photos. I promise you, nobody taught me this. I didn't take any course. I tried to take a course, this didn't work. But I just had to learn through experimentation how to take these photos. And it teaches you how to be in the present moment and how to be aware of your surroundings. And then disconnect from technology. Yes, I just said about taking out your phone to take the picture, but then put the phone away and go on your hike. Now, that does mean occasionally you do need to stop and look at the All Trails app and see where are you on your hike, but don't get on Facebook. Don't get on social media. This is not a time to check the news unless it's like an emergency, like, some national disaster happened or a huge storm is coming. That's the only times I would get on my phone, but largely, I don't want to look at Facebook. I want to get away from technology. It's me and nature. And that is so healthy for you to just get away from the phone. Now we're going to get into the Force. And of course, Karen, what lesson would be yours if you didn't talk about the Force? And the Force is really important in the hike. You don't have to feel the Force. You can just go on a happy little walk and do your walking meditation. But I would feel that if you didn't feel the Force, you're not doing your Jedi exercise in your own hike. So there's several things you can do in the Force. Merely just feel it. You don't have to make a big deal out of it. You don't have to do your 12-step thing that Karen taught you. Just feel the Force. If you want to go a little deeper, feel the living Force. Connect the life around you. Feel the mountains, feel the grass, feel the trees, feel the insects, feel the birds, feel everything around you. Empathy. This is connecting to the life. Plants have empathy too. They have a certain feel of health or dying or struggle. The birds have their own feel. And there's just a lot of little things when I started walking. In fact, it was actually Charles this year that brought me to my attention the amount of connection that I have. And he told me, Karen, you can have your life fall apart and then go on a walk and then everything is great after. I'm like, no, that's not how that works. Silly. Well, my life did fall apart. Microcap Nelly died, and that really did hurt. I had to teach a lesson because I was out of time and we couldn't delay any longer. And I said, well, what do I do? I'm still depressed. And I said, okay, I'm going to go on a walk. And yes, this was a walk, or no, it's a walk. It was on Jordan River Trail, which is paved. And I went for 5 miles, and I came back and I felt a little bit better. And then I got into teaching and I did better and better and better. And I'm like, well, darn it, he's right. And I started saying, okay, well, what is it about this hike, this walking business that is making me feel better? Why does he say this? And so I went on this trail that you're seeing, and I started noticing how much I subconsciously connect to the force and how much little things I keep picking up that I wasn't even aware. But I would come back and I'd be so charged for my hikes. And then I started thinking, oh yeah, I do come back with this feeling. And then winter came and I haven't gone on any real hikes, and I am very anxiously waiting for spring because I really want to explore this. I really want to get deeper into the forest, but unfortunately I am waiting for winter to stop being winter. Stop snowing. So note the flow in the land. The force flows much in the way the currents of the air, the currents of the water, and you can feel that while you're hiking. Trust yourself while you're stepping. If you walk with the force and you see a difficult part of the trail and you're not exactly sure, well, how do I walk on this rocky terrain or, get across the stream? You can feel the force and immerse yourself and say, okay, force, how do I walk? Where do I put my feet? And you'll kind of feel, okay, I put it here, I put it there, and I put it there. And you would have never guessed to put your feet there. You can actually do this. Go ahead and try it. You can also do this while running. I used to do this when I was a teenager. I don't run anymore. I hate running, but I used to do that. And then feel the change of the land. At least in Utah, the land often changes. We have a 45-mile trail called the Jordan River Trail. It's paved, but every single mile of it is different from the last. And you can feel the change in the forest. It's almost like a kind of a different flavor on every single section. And I can feel it in the mountains, I can feel it in the valleys, I can feel it next to a stream, I can feel it in all these different changes. And it's just really interesting to feel those changes. Makes the hike more interesting. Another why. In fact, this is our last slide, but we'll go over the many other reasons to do hiking. Sparks creativity. If you're hitting writer's block, go on a walk. If you are wanting to do art, but you just can't think of anything, go on a walk. If you are needing to write up a lesson, go on a walk. It is so good at getting you to start thinking because you're doing your meditation, you're feeling the force, and you're just feeding your brain lots of stimulants that you don't normally have. Boosts in confidence. Man, there is nothing like going up and down a mountain to make you feel like king or queen of the world. I guarantee you, I feel so amazing when I get these hikes and I accomplish something. In fact, this particular picture you're seeing is about halfway to a lake that I am trying really hard to get to. I haven't completed it. It's called Lake Blanche, and it is 2,700 feet. That is about, I want to say 1,200 feet of climbing, and that alone is pretty impressive. The most I have done on this trail is 2,000, and that was the most I have ever hiked in elevation. Helps with teaching. There is nothing like failing and then redoing and getting lost or getting stuck and getting yourself out of it to give yourself some lessons to go teach others. And you can come up with many different lessons on being a Jedi and having to teach yourself how to be stubborn, like how to get yourself through a really rough section. I call it getting ridiculously stubborn, because when I'm stuck on a trail and I want to get to the waterfall, but this trail is trying to kill me, I have to dig in deep and say, come on, bring it to the waterfall, get to the waterfall. And you have to teach yourself various little tricks, like I'm going to go to this tree and then I will take a break. Or when I get to this section of the trail, I can reward myself, maybe with a little bit of candy, or I'll have that apple I've been saving. A sense of accomplishment, man, I just, there's really nothing like getting up and down a mountain, or, walking 12 miles when you set your goal to do that and you did it. Navigation skills. That isn't necessarily just being able to read a map. It is not only just reading a map, but also looking at the real life and figuring out, well, there's this trail that goes left, but this trail isn't on the map. Now what? And that's where you have to think, okay, the map is saying to go around this way, so it doesn't make sense to go left. Okay, that makes sense. So you have to learn how to do navigation. It also helps to know your 4 points, north, south, east, and west. And that's just something you'll have to learn as you go through. Meeting other people. The trail community is so friendly. And many of them will come up to you and say, hey, how far is it to the waterfall? That is a great time to pull out the map, let them know about All Trails or whatever app you're using, and go, hey, it looks like it's only half a mile more, or dude, you got 3 more miles, I'm sorry. And it's gonna be a rough one. It's also good to tell them, hey, there was a snake up ahead. I don't think it's there, but you may want to be aware. It's also a good point to then encourage others. I've come back when I'm going down the trail and I've gone up my mountain and I'm seeing someone sweating and looks half miserable and looks like they're about to quit. I'll encourage them. I'm like, hey, you're doing great. Keep going. It's only a little bit further, or whatever it is. I will be their cheerleader because others will be my cheerleader. And that's so important to help each other. And also to stop and have a conversation. Yes, they're strangers, but both of you are on a trail. You're both wanting to accomplish the same thing. They're not that scary. A lot of people are scared of the people that go on the trail and are going to take advantage of us. Well, the deeper you go into the mountains, the less you're going to find that, because it takes a lot of effort to go up a mountain, and they don't want to mess with you. Now, with that being said, I will also say there is a little bit of danger. That's why you always tell people where you're going, when you're going, how long you're going, and when you expect to be back, and if you think there will be service or not. And if there's not service, you don't have to freak out. Just they need to know where you're going and when to start freaking out. I usually will say, hey, it's a 2-hour hike. I would say start getting worried at 3 hours and start calling for help at 4 because something went wrong. And I've been on trails where I grossly underestimated how long it was going to take me, and I was fine. And my friend, and I was at least in range, and my friend knew that I was okay. Self-journey. Hiking is about learning about yourself. There is nothing like going for 12 miles to really start working on your emotional problems. You got anxiety, you can start looking at your anxiety. You want to learn about your endurance, you'll learn about endurance. You'll learn how to face your fears, keep on going, how to talk yourself to keep on going, and you'll just learn so much about yourself. It improves your outlook on life, where you really start going, hey, life doesn't suck as much as I think it does. Yeah, work sucks and COVID sucks, and I still don't know what I'm going to teach tomorrow, but I think I can handle life. Just gives you a better outlook. Helps with burnout. I got so burned out on my job where I had 300 in queue, and most calls were yelling at me about that wait time. And I really wanted to point out, well, it's you who's calling me. Stop yelling at me. And when I got really frustrated at work, I would say, okay, what's the next hike? Where am I going? What does that hike look like? Remember that last hike you went on? Imagine that while the customer's yelling and screaming at you. So it does help, and appreciate what you have. You will learn to love AC like you would not believe after a hike. you will learn to appreciate that burger. You will love the fact that you have a car. You will love the fact that you can go home and get a shower after being absolutely filthy, because out west it's very, very dusty. You will learn to appreciate your bed and all the things that you have. It just, I come back from these hikes and I learned that I didn't take all this for granted for 12 miles. I suddenly learned, yeah, I really appreciate AC. Whoever created AC was a brilliant person, and we do not appreciate them enough. And with that, I'm going to say that is the end of my lesson. And does anybody have any questions or concerns or comments?
So I just wanted to, I pointed this out in the chat, but I'm going to say it on video too. The journal concept, I had a journal with me because I thought, well, maybe I'll come up with something cool and write about it. And what ended up happening on that first hike, major hike I took after the gathering, where I came back and I was like, oh my God, why did I do this? Yeah, especially when I could have looked at all trails and noticed that if I'd gone the other direction, it wouldn't have been nearly as bad. Look for elevation on those trail maps, especially if it's a loop. But what I noticed was that like I had a lot of things weighing on me, and that mental weight translated into physical weight. And so I saw this tree that was kind of bent in such a way that I could use it as a table. And I was like, okay, I need to just write all of this stuff out and just get it off my head, because I can't stop thinking about it. So when you had mentioned that you'll sometimes just think about 3 different things, well, one of my 3 different things was just something that was like, I'm a horrible human being. So I was like, okay, I've just got to wipe myself clean. And when I did, after I got it all written out, I was able to just move forward, and the weight was gone, and I had a better hike, which, you know, would have been even worse if I had gone up that hill the way I was going. I think Charles called me in the middle of it. I was like,
Ellie, you actually did that for me, where on that trail, the picture they have right now, I was coming back from that feeling like a failure because it was my 3rd time and I still hadn't gotten to that stupid lake. I was like, yeah, I don't have another time in me, and I'm running out of season, because up in the higher altitudes, you get like 2 months of a mild summer, and that's it. Then the snow comes. So I was just feeling so much like a failure, and I was just eating myself alive. And I finally came into a signal towards the end, and you were texting me, and you snapped me out of my horrible thoughts that were just cycling over and over and over. And I don't remember what you said, but it snapped me out of it, and I suddenly felt a lot better. And at least I didn't drive in a horrible mood. I still felt like a failure, but I mean, I wasn't quite eating myself alive. So yes, thank you, Allie, for that one time. And also, Sarah, I want to give you a shout out too, because you've been a big cheerleader for me. I guess that's something I should have said. Have your cheerleader team. Get a bunch of friends, let them know you're going on a hike, and let them know where you're going, and share photos with them. And they get the photos before everybody else does. And they can help keep you going when you're staring at the mountain and going, I can't get up this stupid thing. Well, you take a break and you tell your friends and you show the photos, and they go, wow, Karen, you're doing amazing. You're like, but this mountain is trying to kill me. Who cares? Keep going. So yes, thank you for those who do cheerleader me. It really does make a difference.
well, I enjoy seeing all of your pictures and whatnot. They're freaking amazing.
Well, thank you. And I thought about adding more slides just to show off more photos, but I was like, nah, but we'll go on for 2 hours.
So I just want to mention one thing really quickly.
Sure.
Because everything that was in this is fantastic. Every bit of it is is really, really important for psychological, spiritual, mental, and physical self-care. The only thing that I would want to voice in it, and it's just because moderation is the thing, is do not let something like this, even if it's not hiking, anything that you do to de-stress on the regular, do not let it become a point of escapism. Because if you rely on it too much, then you just get to a point where you can't. Not that it's difficult, you just can't. And that's a point that everybody gets to at some point, and they just have to be very mindful to not let it go that far.
I would agree. Yeah. You do have to have other hobbies. I'm not very good at those, but I do have a few. I do read. That is my plan on how to hibernate through winter. Just stick your nose in a book and don't look at the snow. But I do understand the don't get too attached. But yeah. Oh, by the way, I did just finally look at the comments and I realized there are things I did not include. I can't include everything or we would be here for 2 hours. So the list of things, that is not the only stuff you need to bring. That is the top most important things. There are many other things you could bring, but the more you bring, the more you carry and the harder it is to hike. So pick out what you think is important and what you think is safety wise, but those are the things that are the absolute must grabs. There are plenty more things you could bring. Any other comments, questions, concerns?
Maybe I missed this in the presentation, and I apologize if I did. What are your thoughts on people going off trail?
See, I am cautious. And I am cautious because I have gotten myself in trouble, not getting off a trail per se, but even being on trail, I've got myself in trouble. So I don't like to get off of trail. The only times I'll get off is to go use the bathroom. And yeah, that means going and finding a rock, getting away from everybody, digging my little hole and squatting. But I don't like to get off a trail unless I'm 100% certain I can find that trail, because the All Trails app won't necessarily help me get back to that trail. And I wouldn't necessarily do that alone. That might be, I will have someone with me and we make a joint decision of, yes, we're going to get off a trail.
So I am going to come in here as a former search and rescue volunteer. I advise against going off trail because if you get lost, even a dog will have difficulty finding you.
Yep. Yeah, it's a big risk. It's not worth it,
It
in
is
my
a
opinion.
huge risk. And especially if you're not leaving anything behind, like you're leaving no traces. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's also places where it's illegal.
I used to go hiking in the Pyrenees on the French-Spanish border, and then there are also good places to go hiking over in the east of France, for almost to the Swiss border. And we do not go off trail because every year people get lost and they do turn up in a very, we find skeletons there all the time. People who just, oh, that's pretty, and they want to go off, and they don't think about if they lose the trail, they lose the way out. Mm-hmm. So, I just wanted to add that going off trail, especially in mountainous areas, is very dangerous and not wise at all, unless you're with a guide. If you're with someone who's very familiar with the terrain, well then certainly. But going off the trail just because you think you can do it is a bad thing to think you can do. I just wanted to add that. Thank you for your discussion. It was really nice, the presentation about the quality of hiking and how it connects us to the force. Anytime you be in nature, it does that. It's like whenever you're in nature, we remember that we are nature. I just wanted to thank you for that.
Yeah, one thing oh, sorry. Hi. Uh, yeah, hey, what about say maybe like having a poncho to get to cover yourself up with so you don't get that far off trail and yet you're still keeping your privacy per se.
Oh, for the bathroom needs?
Yeah.
I mean, you could. I wouldn't have thought of that. I
Yeah,
mean, to
because
a certain extent, you're in nature. If you have
right.
a problem seeing someone go to the bathroom, you probably shouldn't be on trail.
Right. Another something else I've got a question. Say if there is something that does get you outdoors that you were formerly passionate about, how would you suggest to try to find that motivation again to get yourself back to doing it?
Oh, that's actually a great question because I face that. So the hardest thing about hiking is not the hike, it's not the planning, it's getting out the door. The moment you're in the car, you might as well be on trail, but it is the hardest thing to get out of bed, get clothes on, and get out the door. And I will sit there for an hour delaying, getting on Facebook and looking up YouTube and doing anything but getting out the door. And I have to remind myself the joy and the pride and the peace and the beauty of it all and the just wonder of getting out there. And if I can just convince myself, just get out the door, I'm already on the trail, pretty much. It's easy to get in the car. It's then easy to drive. It's easy to find the trail, get that stretching done, and start on your hike. But I will admit, the hardest thing is out the door, just doing that one thing. And you gotta remember that awesome photo that you got like 20 likes on Facebook and you felt pretty great about yourself. Yeah, I want you to do that. You want your Coke? Go get on the trail. And also, someone brought a great point. Getting off a trail is a bad idea, not only just for danger reasons, but it's bad for the land. And hiking in itself, one person, not that bad for the land, but when you do hundreds of people year after year after year, the land does erode, especially out west where it's dry. It will just tear up the mountains, and I've seen that over and over. So when you're thinking, oh, I'll just take a shortcut because I'm on a switchback is when you go up and up and up the mountain, back and forth. That's called a switchback. And it's very tempting to say either I'll go up or I'll go down and I'll go a straight line rather than do the switchbacks. That is really bad for the land. And when you're hiking and tearing up the dirt, you're also tearing up the flowers, you're tearing up the bushes, you're tearing up roots, you are encouraging erosion. When it does rain, it will go and take more of the trail with it, and you will slowly ruin the land and the trail for everybody else. So it's very important to stay on trail for that reason. You also may or may not realize that you are stepping on endangered plants. In Utah, we have Indian paintbrush that is very delicate and is endangered and is pretty to look at. But if you get off a trail, you have a good chance of walking on it. So when I do see Indian paintbrush, I make sure I stay on the trail because I want that stuff to stay around.
I'd like to hit on in Florida, while we don't have a lot of mountain hiking, obviously. As soon as you're off trail, you're gonna deal with fire ants regardless. But as soon as you're off trail, the odds of you finding something nasty, stinging, and biting that doesn't like the fact that you exist has went up by 10,000%. And that's a low ball estimate. If you step off trail in Florida, it's not if you will run into the ants, it's when you will run into them.
And Florida has the Florida Trail, which is 1,100 miles long. It's really long. And there I do watch hiking videos on YouTube through the winter. That's one of the things I do to keep myself entertained. And it also is a great motivation when you're trying to convince yourself to go on the hike. Go watch a hiking video. It'll make it easier to get out the door. But yeah, I've seeing the horrors of getting off a trail in Florida. No, nope, nope. There are swamps all around, there are gators all around, and there's a billion trillion insects around.
Let's not forget about alligators.
That's what I said. I said
When-
gators.
when you live in Florida, the ants are worse than the alligators. You'll see the alligator at a distance and have some opportunity to rethink your position. You won't see the ants until you've stepped down, because the underbrush and things like that, you literally don't have a shot once you're off trail. I'd say beyond that, the only way I would recommend going off trail is if you are someone who is already at the point where you wouldn't have to ask that. As funny as that's, if you've got to rethink it, you're not at the skill level to do it. If you're there going, should I do this? Don't.
Yeah, they say when in doubt, back out.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I have done that exact thing where I said, oh, should I do it? And I went and did it, and it was a huge mistake. And I've done things where I said, no, I learned last time. And then I didn't do it, and I didn't get in trouble.
We need a search and rescue course right after this one for all the people that go that are going to ignore this. Not that anyone here is going to, but like when it gets recorded. Did this one get recorded?
Yes, it got
Okay, here's the
recorded.
question.
We need
though.
a
It's like,
search and
if
rescue one that
we've
comes
only
right
been
after
talking
this.
about the things not to do. If someone ignores it, why bother with search and rescue? I mean, really. I mean, if somebody wants to be eaten by fire ants or alligators or get lost and fall in a crevice, well then,
Well, okay,
you know,
to be fair, the majority of people
Jedi
that
save
we end
people
up
from their own
going and
stupidity
looking
all the time.
for, the majority of the time that we go and we look for people and search and rescue is either after a massive disaster, in the case of silver alerts, or in the case of children. It's not typically adults unless they were like caught unawares by some serial killer. And they're, so you have a medical problem. These are the real reasons we send out search and rescue people.
And as for the reason why we do it, because it's the right thing to go after someone who is not smart enough to not do something that got themselves in trouble. At the end of the day, being a good person is not just helping smart people. Smart people usually don't need the help. It's that one person who looks over and goes, well, you know what? Karen said I could go off trail a little bit to go potty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a 1 mile hike in that direction where there is nothing. 1 solid mile, that should get me away from any peering eyes. They get there, they look around and they go, oh, there's a lot of trees. And that is,
and they don't recognize any of them, right?
Yes.
Well,
No, they
there's
recognize all of them.
There's also
recognize all of them,
this
it's a problem.
understanding that, hey, you know, someone maybe didn't mean to go off trail
Right.
and ended up off trail somehow.
Well, with what Alexander was saying is if they purposefully did it,
There are a lot of reasons. I
A
was
lot of
avoiding
people
a
do
rattlesnake.
Yeah. a lot of people do things purposefully that they know they
Um,
shouldn't. Though.
so yeah, I mean, I don't think we can say why bother with search and rescue because we
Well, I
probably
mean,
be bothering with it.
even if they did it on purpose,
Jedi
for
respect
themselves-
all life.
You realize, I hope, that I'm just being, I
know you are.
was not being, sincere when I said it. Of course, we've got to go fetch them whenever they get off trail. But it's one of those things where, all these people who turn out to be Dunning-Kruger poster children, if they know better, or they don't think that it's going to happen to them, well, then certainly, it makes you think about it. It's like, go get them, but I hope they learned something. The second time they do it, they're on their own. But
So Karen, because I will slice this out. Do you have anything you want to add at the end of this before I hit the stop recording button?
I want everybody to go on one hike this year. It does not have to be hard. Just try it out. Give me a chance and let me know how it goes. Take photos because I love photos. I don't care if it's just some dirt. Dirt is usually pretty out there. Sure.
I think I'm going to accept that
All
challenge
right.
and I'm going to record it and I'm going to put it up so you guys can see it.
Go for it.
certainly
And,
we've already got going into the Jura planned for the month of March. And there's another time we're going to be up in the northwest of France. There's some nice places up there too.
Okay.
Well, yes, there's one an archaeological site that there's one that leads to an archaeological site which is about 15 kilometers outside of Amiens.
I didn't quite hear the
Photos.
Yeah, you'll get your photos.
Okay. Well, with that, may the force be with you. Thank you so much for
put my
listening.
microphone on.
Yeah,
I put
force
my
what,
phone
Vic?
on the computer on